Welcome everybody to Missing Links, Piecing Together a Penang Art Scene. This talk is part of a series called Walking the Talk, which is to do with the Narratives of Malaysian Art book project, which I am a part of as part of Ruang Art. My name is Beverly Yong. I'm from KL, so we thank you very much to Penang for collaborating with us and welcoming us to do this talk today. So first off, thank you to our collaborators, USM School of the Arts and Ruang Kongsi for working with us on this discussion. And also very, very big thanks to Hin Bus Depot for sponsoring this venue, this wonderful venue tonight. I hope we're all very cozy. We'd like to thank also Penang Art District for supporting the documentation of this talk. I'd like to let you know that the talk will be documented both for archival purposes and also the panel discussion will be uploaded online on YouTube so that everyone can share a bit what we're talking about today. Just like to talk a little bit about the Narratives of Malaysian Art project. This is a 4-volume book project published by us, but it's really, we think of it as a Gotong Royong project which started 10 years ago. It's a knowledge gathering exercise where we've tried to bring together different voices on Malaysian art history, Malaysian art infrastructure, and different perspectives about Malaysian art and practice. So we have 4 volumes of the book. There's a lovely lady who's a Penang artist. So this series, Walking the Talk, has kind of risen out of this series because we've just published the final volume, Volume 4, Perspectives. Volume 4, we have 4 volumes. The first volume and the second volume are about the art history. And they talk about identities, imagining identities, and new critical strategies. So covering Malaysian art from pre-independence up to today, looking at ideas of claiming identity, looking at the ways artists have responded to social political issues. It's very, very broad, and they're both essays, interviews, and surveys. Volume 3 is about infrastructures, where we create sort of based it around a series of roundtables, bringing together institutions, artist collectives, educators, and also commissioned surveys and writings. And the final volume is looking at how we might go forward with Malaysian art and writing about Malaysian art history and how we look at Malaysian art as a public. So, yeah. So since we finished it, we thought we'd take it on the road, and we've been through KL and also Kuching and KK and Ipoh. So we're really glad to be in Penang. So here we are. So tonight's, a little bit about tonight's session. It's in 2 parts. The first part is a panel discussion, which will be moderated by Dr. Sarena Abdullah of Universiti Sains Malaysia's School of the Arts. Welcome. Thank you, Dr. Sarena. And that will last until about 9:10. And we will then have a session called Kerusi Hangat Seni Sangat, facilitated by Fan Chon and Ruang Kongsi. And they will explain a bit more at 9:10 about what that's all about. But about around 9 something, then we'll have some drinks and some food for those who are staying on. We've advertised this session from 8 to 10, but I think it's likely to spill over. So do hang on if you wanna share your views. Okay, so we're just waiting for Hasnul, who hasn't arrived yet, or perhaps we should start. I'll introduce Dr. Sarena. She's going to give I'm going to talk. Sorry, excuse me. Okay, let me talk a little bit about would you like to talk about the session first? Yeah. And then I'll talk about the speakers. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Beverly. So the thunder is here. Okay, my name is Sarena Abdullah. Basically, I teach art history at School of the Arts, USM. So I'm very happy to be here tonight, to be moderating along with Beverly here in front of us. And we have a very interesting panelists tonight on when we were doing discussion, Beverly, about like how we should sort of like pitch or see the Penang art scene. We sort of like use the term piecing the pieces, right?
It's called
What was that?
piecing.
Missing links, piecing together Penang art scene.
I managed to turn it off and turn it on. Piecing together a Penang art scene. I mean, we spent a lot of time thinking what we should call this talk. Sarena was saying that there are lots of different, now the Penang art scene has grown, there are lots of different generations and different factions, if you like, that didn't know that much about each other.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, definitely. Okay, so tonight we have with us, being Penang itself, I think Penang is a very important scene in Malaysian art history itself. Some of the Penang art pioneers such as Yong, Teo Kiat, and early art associations such as Penang Impressionists, the Penang Teachers Art Circle, okay, were all based in Penang before the Malaysian art scene sort of like moved to KL. So I think it is about time for us to rethink back or see along the generational gap of those people who have been based in Penang and have always been working within the Penang art scene itself. So we have today with us supposedly 4 panelists, but we are still missing one more panelist, okay? But next to me is Dato' Tang is a second generation artist who was born 1943. He had 6 one-man shows, with most recent being the Tang Hon Yin retrospective in 2009 recently. I think that the show is still ongoing, at least on the 2018 until 2019. So basically, we invited Dato' because he's actually a part of the Utara group, which was active for 14 continuous years from 1977 to 1990. At least in the span of inactivity of 21 years, then suddenly they came out again with 2011, the Utara Art Show. Okay, and next to Dato' Tang Yin is Mr. Chuen, now describing himself as the art capo. But Mr. Ui's capacity or interest in the art scene has always been in contributing towards the art writing itself. So he has been doing a lot of art reportage in various newspapers and all that. So I'm very happy to see Prof. Madia Hasnul here. I'm quite nervous that he's not coming. He ditched on me. He just So, Prof. Hasnul is my colleague back in our office at School of the Arts. He does a lot of work in Penang art scene, like pioneering programs at both, UNIMAS, UMS, USM, creating, organizing, helping out with final year showcases, such as Chipta and Rintis, and at least in the context of my class, his first electronic art show, and also subsequent new media art exhibitions such as Happy View, Takong, and also co-founder of the Art Asian online in 2007. So I think that is a very good contribution to the Malaysian art scene. So he does a lot of curator work, contributed dot writings, etc., etc. And now I think like his latest babies are his projects, Hero, Gema Belas, Didik Jiwa Halus, Roh Kita, and also Rumah Tok Chu. Okay, Prof? All right. And next to the young man, Mr. Fan Chon. Fan Chon, he is an artist and curator born, I think the most youngest of us all, 1982. Currently resides in Georgetown. He is one of the co-founder and member of an art collective, Run Amok Gallery. He had completed his BA photography at London College of Communication 2010 and has been exhibiting locally and also internationally. He was one of the participants for the Japan Foundation Asia Center Creators Workshop and also had participated in No Man's Land Residency Project, Nusantara Archive in Taiwan. I think like he recently took part in Makassar Biennale last year. Okay, all right. So, okay, let's see. I guess in a whole way, sort of like narrating the Penang art scene, Mr. Oi, who has been writing a lot on Malaysian art scene, can you speak more about the Penang art scene in general, based on your experience in the arts industry and also as an arts writer?
Hello. Okay. Basically, the term missing links is a misnomer because it suggests some kind of connectability or connection or some grand scheme of things, but that is not the actual thing, because for over 100 years, little over 100 years, things just develop because of personalities, because of people, exponents in various fields at various levels with their own shortcomings or talents. So most of them, they just operate in a like shock syndrome kind of thing, So they are all just these different spheres or emanations of the art productions. So basically, I just list down some of the things where you can actually identify these art production or promotion places. Like for the artists, I just like to mention their names. Just instances, not all, because that is also like a homage to them. But you will see, as I talk, you will see some of the images there of the various personalities. They are all of different generations, and especially in Penang, some of them are Penang born. Some of them, they have gone out of the country. Some of them, gone out of the island, and some of them, they are from elsewhere. They come and settle in Penang. Some of them, in their early careers, they have settled in Penang. They went elsewhere, and then they have made Penang their base. So basically, some of the places are like, okay, for institutions, there's the Batik Art Museum, Penang State Art Gallery, Yahong, USM. The USM, they have the Tuanku Fauzia Tuanku Fauzia Museum. Then for schools, there's the USM, where you have people like Hasnul, Lim Ing Hui, Ismail Hashim, and now Sarena, Dr. Sarena Abdullah, and the Equator Art Academy, started by Dato' Chua Kui Yong in 1986 or 87. Anyway, then there's the one by Dato' Kogak Kim, the Penang Art Center, the Science Academy by Ku Lok Siang, the Institute of Conservatory of Fine Arts, Konseni, by Yan Chi Ling and Dato' Wee Wen Kim, which is also for music. And of course, one of the earliest important places is the Hanjiang High School, which has an art society, and that's where this Dato' Chong Hong Fat comes from. Anyway, during the early years, even Georgette Cheng taught there, and we have Yu Ho Kun, Ho Kei Beng, who was trained in Rome, one of the only two artists trained there, and Dato' Chua Ten Teng, of course. Then we have the galleries. The older ones, they come and go. Even like Chia Yu Chan, he actually had a gallery in Prangin Road at the, what do you call that? It was managed by his brother, Chia Tek Chiam. He has got two brothers and one sister who is in Singapore, who are all the brothers, all the three chairs have died. They are all artists, and his place was at the Lim Chi Leong building in the 1962 early years. And then of course there was this Awas by Drew Harris and Sharifah, who has already gone to KL. Then the WAF Art Academy, no more, in the Straight Ski Gallery. This gallery demise is very important because in Long Hain building, the gallery demise was it organized two very important international exhibitions in the 60s. Before it was in Kimberley Street, then it moved to Burma Road. It was run by Mei Liang. This was a former wife of Dato' T. Mo Leong. Oriental Art, Rasa Sayang Hotel, then Ho Kei Bing, and this was run by Ho Kei Bing. Then Ho Kei Bing and Ho Kei Kim, their houses in Sungai Kiliang also is like an unofficial art gallery. And then there was the three-quarter studio at Puan Hin Ling Road, the mini art gallery by Ku Kei Tat. That was early years. Now his daughter run Alisa. I think now I don't know where he is now. And the ENO Hotel also did many things. The Rainbow Art Gallery by Chia Tek Chiam. Then of course when Sui Ho came back, he started Uttara Gallery in the China, Alpha Uttara, sorry, in China Street. Then in the early years, a lot of the art exhibitions were done in the Hui Kwan and all these clan associations, you know. And once there was which was much later on, there was even an exhibition at Kopitiam. And among one of the earlier galleries was Man Sing, which had its first. This Man Sing had his first show at the Hui An Kong in Hui An Kong Hui in Magazine Road. So you can see that, you know, those early years, art was actually those people just painted for fun, and it's like, you know, they can actually it's not a lucrative thing, you know. They do it because for the love of it. But now all these books are very, very important because they are very significant in records of the time and place, and also of the visions and certain manifestations of the values, the significance, you know, of time, place, of culture, of things. So as you see all these pictures, they, you know, somehow or other, you know, it's not just you looking at the pictures, you know, but all these people, you know, what they did, you know, over the years. Some of them are still alive, some of them are dead, some of them might not be painting anymore because of sickness or whatever. But these are all very significant things. Their contributions towards the whole ecosystem of what we now know and come to accept as the art, the art scene and the art market that we enjoy today. These are all very, very important. You know, art is not just creating things for you to hang up in the walls, because you know, otherwise that, you know, they might as well not create these artists. Anyway, okay, other venues, they are like British Council, where we have people like James Mundy during those times, the director, Alliance Francaise, USIS. Then there came this Malihome Art Residency. Of course, you know, this place called the Hing Bus Depot, which was, I think, opened in the 2014, you know, and the persistence of the people there is like a little Cohen garden here, and it is a stimulus, you know, it is a catalyst for all those things, art and culture.
Okay, Mr. Uy. You've spelled out an array, not only places, artists. I was just wondering, because I remember Prof. Hasnul, who came from Sarawak to USM. My main question to you is that, do you realize or do you know of such a large spread out art scene in Penang. Were you conscious of that, or it's just like, you know, terjumpa, you know, the kind of thing?
Okay. Thank you very much. When I came to Penang in 2002, I was invited to teach painting as a part-time lecturer by Dr. Najib. And then I moved to Penang in 2003. Before that, I was trying to become a full-time artist for a year, but it was a failure. I couldn't become a full-time artist. Before that, in 2000, I was in CENFED, Center for Advanced Design. So I didn't come straight from UNIMAS. Of course, before that, I was in UNIMAS. As for the Penang Art Scene, when I came to Penang, I came with a very deep respect to Penang, at least historically, from what I've read. I've come to know few things, few people. There were several artists that I admire a lot who were actually based in Penang, one of whom is our Otai here, Tang Ho Yin. His water margin during my time when I was in UITM, I remember sitting in front of his painting, mesmerizing paintings, you know, I was, wow, who is this guy, you know. So I had a very deep respect to Penang because Penang has a very interesting history. I've done some readings about Penang. So when I came in and when I decided to move from Kuala Lumpur to Penang, I had in my mind a very deep respect to Penang. It was not a gamble, it was like a purposeful move for me.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Uy, based on experience, okay, how do you find Penang artists, how do they organize themselves over the years? I mean, like, you've given us ranges of names, associations, etc., etc., but do you see it as a top-down kind of like organizing or bottom-up kind of organizing?
Perhaps particularly in the very early years, because I think a lot of people here are not aware of kind of the very early art scene in Penang. Perhaps you could let us know a little bit about, you know, how artists first started organizing themselves, even back before Merdeka.
Okay, most of them are self-taught, and then it was only later when the Nanyang Art Academy came out, and then we have people like Goh Ju Ping who went over there, and even then he didn't complete his studies. You know, then he came back, and a lot of people in Penang, they were all very inspired by those people who went over to NAFA to study. Then it was only later in the late 60s that they have this the MIA, Malaysian Institute of Art, the Kuala Lumpur College of Art, and of course among the artists here, they try to form in the early years. They try to form an art school, but it didn't materialize because there were, I think, only 1 or 2 students. So basically, is the early years, all of them they have different influences. Like some of them, they already had studied in whether they complete or you don't complete, you know, at the Shanghai Academy of Art or at the Amoy Art Academy, like Chua Tan Ting, but he didn't finish it. Like Yong Man Sing, he was born in Kuching, but he went back to China to study, and then he came back here, and then he met this Japanese artist. That was what kindled his interest here. So actually, structurally, there is absolutely nothing. Institutionally, no, there was no no help at all. So everybody was just doing their best to, of course, like people like Yong saying, yes, he is one of the earliest full-time artists. No, later on when Kui Suheo became a full-time artist, no, he was like a hero, no.
How about sort of early associations, sort of art associations and art teacher circles, or maybe Dr. Sarena might, or anybody else might have some information about early, it's sort of known as the early art societies that started in Penang.
Some of the early art societies would be the Penang Impressionist, Penang Teachers Art Circle, the Thursday Art Group, and of course, in my own work, I didn't realize actually Penang has its own art group, in which Dr. Tang can, I hope, can explain more about the Utara art group. Maybe you can tell us more about its brief history, and also who are the members, and also, you know, what sort of like becomes the inspiration for, you know, the few artists who came up with this idea of having an art group in Penang. You know, tell us more about it.
Good evening, everyone. Actually, in the year 1977, when Sui Ho came back from New York and decided to form Utara Group, the scenario here was very much like what Chuen has described. There was very little support. So for artists who wanted to exhibit, there were the Penang Art Society and various societies to which you can belong. And Sui Ho found that unsatisfactory in the sense that you have 100 members, each displaying one work, and you didn't really have a chance to display your work in a serious manner, according to Sui Ho. And then there was a great dearth of private galleries. Private galleries, not like today. There were very few private galleries at that time. And a few exhibitions that were organized were held, like, for example, were organized by the State Art Gallery, which was actually formed in 1965. So before 1965 is almost non-existent infrastructure. So there's no art gallery, no state institution to motivate artists to show, and it's just institutions. And the very few solos that were held, I can remember, like Chua Ten Ting had solos, and Chun Gi had solos. Were very rare, a special occasion, and probably a lot of effort. So when Sui Ho came upon this kind of scenario, he felt it was totally unsatisfactory. So he decided to get a small group of people, and the original members. Can you go to the first? Here we have 11 artists who were at different times members of Utara. The original 5 were, of course, the founder, Sui Ho here, and then Yong Siak Ling, who his original name was Yong Chi Cheong, but later on, for some reason, he changed to Siak Ling. Okay, and Lim Chi Boon, Said Saleh, and Lim Kang Chui. And the following year, in 1978, Sui Ho invited Chong Hip Sing here, who is here, and myself. And then later on, 1980, he invited Sharifah, and then followed by Sulaiman Jamaluddin. And after Sulaiman Jamaluddin suddenly passed away, Judin Ahmad, and then quite late in 1987, 3 years before Utara stopped exhibiting, Askandar Unglet. So out of the 11 artists here, 4 have passed away. Lim Kang Chui, Said Saleh recently, Lim Chi Boon, and Sulaiman Jamaluddin. So they are all about the same age, most of them. And so that's Sui Ho, actually the person who knows, who has done the most to try to prod Sui Ho, the founder, is this guy here. You know, in the book, the book, can we just show the book, the Uttara book? Yeah, the cover is here. This book was published in 2011. It was 21 years of no exhibitions. So they were formed in 1977, and continuously for 14 years they had 20 exhibitions, you know, and suddenly for 21 years they stopped exhibiting, and people were asking, are you dead or alive or hibernating or what, you know. And suddenly Yong proposed, why don't we have some closure? A lot of people are asking questions, why not have a closure? And hence we had the show in 2011, and the person who did all the research and wrote the main piece is this gentleman here. And in there you will see a well-researched paper, and he tried to dig as much as he could from Sui Ho, and there was a special interview, Q&A, with Sui Ho and Sharifah Fatimah Zubir. So what were the reasons, in short, for Sui Ho forming this group? He felt that it was firstly economically more viable, because, you know, all were working. Most of them were teachers. The three, Kang Chui, Chi Boon, and Sai Saleh were all art teachers, and Siak Ling was at that time a graphic designer, and the only full-time artist was Sui Ho. But he felt that he wanted to have a group of artists that showed something fresh, something different. He never, in all the years he was the leader of the group, he never once told the artists, this is what you should do and this is what you shouldn't do. He never once attempted to put a lid on our imagination. And that's why it's so hard for Chuen to get it out of him. Why? What was the criteria of his selection of members? Because he was making the point, some of his closest friends, outstanding artists, were still not in the group, things like that. So I can say that once as a group, you are economically easier to help each other, to organize shows, and to do the framing, do the packing, and then organize everything, you know, just split the tasks and run the show. And secondly, he was asking, is it because there is a tendency towards abstraction? That cannot be true, because hip sing does nothing but does nothing but figures, you know, figures. So it's not true that Uttara artists were inclined towards abstraction, but what he wanted really was something fresh, not the same old beaten track. In the early days, Teh Hui Ket invented the term chocolate box paintings, and it became a kind of strict no-no, you know. And one of the Q&A revealed Sui Ho's kind of aversion to art which was commercially motivated. You notice that or not? He never said it in so many words. It's a kind of contradiction in terms, because artists have to still put food on the table, right? They still have to pay bills, and yet he had a kind of natural aversion to people who painted solely to sell. So he hinted, that's one of the reasons why he didn't pick certain artists. So you can conclude that that was another thing on his mind. All this he never stated. Swee Ho never stated that you should have a fresh painting. He never, but we regarded him very highly. All of us were just like totally unknown people, you know, and like when he first called me on the phone, I never met him. I had not met him, you know, and likewise Hip Sing, you know. So he, out of the blues, he just called me on at the end of 1977 after his first Uttara show, and he asked me whether I would like to join Uttara and to meet at the 747 in YMCA, you know. So that's when I met Hip Sing there in the lobby, you know, and he asked me, do you know me? Hip Sing asked me, do you know me? I said, because at the time you saw his photo, he looked like hippie, you know. Then I said, should I know you? Then he said, I'm your student. He said, I was your ex-student. Then I said, why are you here? I said, oh, Swee Ho asked me to join Uttara. And I said, oh, strange, same thing with me. So that's how we met. So the reason I'm telling the story is, it shows that Swee Ho didn't pick artists based on friendship. You know, it totally never met me. I had not met him. And then on the basis of paintings I had previously shown in the State Gallery organized annual show, you know, he picked, and likewise for Hip Sing. And yeah. So can I just show the next quickly? Because some of you probably were I mean, you have never seen some of the Uttara exhibitions and probably never met any of them. So I just showed 3 paintings of each artist quickly. You know, like Swee Ho, just to give you an idea what they were doing. And then Siak Ling, his early works were like this. This Siak Ling. Can you associate Siak Ling with this? No. He will be associated with this. You all recognize him for this. But he was picked to be in Uttara based on the first show, the first kind of painting, which was very different. Next, please. Then Said Saleh. Everybody loved his work. Everybody loved his work. You know? So that's Said Saleh. Chi Boon, sorry, I've only one of his work. Just quickly, an example. And Kang Chui, example, just example. And Hip Sing, of course, all of you are familiar with his work. All right. Then there's Once Upon a Time. Okay. My early works were like that, and then Sharifah, of course, Sharifah. Okay. And then Judin. Sulaiman Jamaluddin and Said Askandar. I don't have their work, sorry about that. So we grouped together and we sort of motivated each other. Okay. You know? And we visited each other. One of our favorite places was to visit Hip Sing on his farm in Selama, and at that time he was living in a bus, converted and all this, you know. So it's very nice hippie, you know, to go and be in his bus, you know, fruit trees everywhere, you know, and then we visit Sharifah. We visit Said Saleh, and his wife will cook delicious food for us, you know. And things like that. So, but the base actually was at 215 McAllister Road, okay, which was Lim Chong Kat's residence until today. And he invited Swee Ho to please use the quarters at the back. There's for his young family. Okay. And and that became the base for Utara. And he would like to. He always came around and look at our works, and we will always ask him to critique our work. You know, we critique our work, and then he's quite a candid. He will be quite candid, although he can be very diplomatic. He will be very candid, but you have to read what he's trying to tell you, not to pursue down this way. You know, it's too much like so and so on. So anyway, he was a big help to us, Dato Lim Chong Ket, and actually the main person was Sui Ho. He led by example. So we really our lives all changed because of Sui Ho.
Okay, thank you very much, Dato Tang, for giving us like the overview of what happened at the time. Playing tricks on us. Anyway, if you have those questions in mind, please, we will have a short Q&A session afterwards. So keep those questions in your burning head. All right, but 20 years later, I remember, 20 years later than Utara, I remember when I came back from my studies, and at one point, another 2 or 3 years, I met you, Fan Chon, who just came back from the UK. So I was just wondering what was the scene at the time, and how you established Run Amo, and what are the younger collectives that you sort of like have encountered in the last few years.
Hi. I came to Penang for personal reason. I was a bit ignorant about Penang art history. Thank you for showing us the Utara Collective. I think they are more hipster than what the hipster we have today. So the reason me and my late partner founded Run Amok, because we partly is out of frustration. We didn't see enough interesting exhibition in town that I can relate to, because I study contemporary art. And then secondly is also I do not know anybody in Penang and Georgetown. Then I thought by running a space is a great way to reach out and collaborate with different artists. So through running Run Amok, then slowly I got to know different artists from Malaysia. The only Penang artist I knew and I was really inspired by was Hoi Chong, who is more active in the contemporary art practice rather than the modern art practitioner at that time. So in terms of other collectives in Georgetown, the one I know which just recently disbanded was Rumah Studio. I think some of the members are here. Rumah Studio. Rumah Studio has been very instrumental in being the support for Himbas as well for some of their activities here, because they belong to the same clique. They were active in graffiti art, and also they, in some way, from what Dr. Tang was saying, I think they are also a support group for the artists who believes in the same thing. So they empower each other, even though they don't have a physical infrastructure like Run Amok did. So they act as a way to help each other to grow as an artist. That's it from me. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the issue of infrastructure and also arts education. I think Dato' Tang also has involved with the Penang State Art Gallery. Maybe you can enlighten us about the establishment of the Penang State Art Gallery, its evolution and its role, and how it supports the Penang Art Scene.
The Penang State Art Gallery was actually inaugurated in 1965. Started with a local art exhibition, and the guest of honor was the then Governor Raja Tun Uda, And if you look at the permanent collection, the book published by the State Art Gallery. And the last few pages, Haryani, who is here, Haryani, the State Art Gallery director, she has compiled a list of every single exhibition from 1965 until at that time, I think 2011. Every single exhibition, and where possible, she has included who opened the show. So that is a very useful information to see the activity, the concrete evidence of activity of group shows or what kind of shows. For example, Latif Mohideen had a show, Golombang, and you have Artist Camp, you have Sharifah Fatimah Zubir, having shows, early shows there and so on. And early Suiho's one-man show, one of the very earliest shows was, I think, in 1966 or 67. So you can see the trailblazers, and of course the early people who led the Penang State Art Gallery were people like Teh Hui Kiat, followed by Teh Mo Leong, and then Dr. Chung Sim Pui. And then later I got the baton over from Chung Sim Pui, 94 to 97, and then later on 2006 to more recently, in 14 years I was a chairman of State Art Gallery, and very happily passed to a very able person, Lee Kai. So in brief, that's State Art Gallery, but the general aims of the gallery can be just summarized like trying very hard to enrich the lives of the community by having stimulating shows. And here we, in various ways, try to ensure that the exhibition quality keeps on rising, and in the exhibitions will motivate artists to do better for every subsequent show, to do better. And regular participants of the State Art Gallery exhibitions in the calendar was always the regular societies, Watercolor Society, Penang Art Society, this Oil Painting Society of BM, and so on. So there were many such societies. They regularly, including the Penang Teachers Art Circle, and of course there were applicants for solos, etc., etc. So if I were to characterize the early period was characterized by very low budget, extremely low budget. So there was not much you could do with that budget. For example, when I became the chairman of the State Art Gallery in 1994, I found that the entire year's expenditure, the budget for all the activities, which was to mount approximately 10 to 15 shows, was 10,000 ringgit. 10,000 ringgit. And to my horror, one fine day, when I attended a committee meeting, something to do with the state organizing all kinds of arts festivals, to my horror, I discovered that 30,000 was allocated for Pesta Memancing, which is a fishing competition over the weekend. So it reflected how low a priority art or the development of the art gallery was to the state. So it was important for institutions like this to try to be a bit proactive and not blame fate. So because of our low budget, we have no choice but to be reactive, meaning to say we just consider applicants for exhibitions and then we approve. So that's not really a gallery, You have to make hence you have try to build a permanent collection. You have to try to build a permanent collection. Okay, so I think that has continued until this day, and I think Haryani was the number now. We have 1,800 paintings. At that time, at the early years, the first 30 years, the State Art Gallery had only purchased 10 paintings in the first 30 years of its existence. And the other paintings, there were after 30 years, about 60-something paintings, and the bulk was donated by people who took part in who had a show and then our courtesy, they donated to the guests of honor who came, and then who then in turn usually gave to the gallery. And sometimes the third-party buyers, sponsors, they will buy a painting which they thought was very good, and they felt should belong to the State Art Gallery, but there was no effort made to form a permanent collection. But today that has changed a lot. So that's something. That's the institution.
So would you say? So would you say that over most of the decades, the Penang State, since its inception, Penang State Art Gallery was really the only kind of infrastructure for supporting artists? I mean, sort of official infrastructure for many years? It sounds like that, I don't know.
Usually, we shouldn't be too saddened by this, because many states, including Perak, are still hoping for their first State Art Gallery. So we had an art gallery in 1965. So we are lucky in many ways. But the other institutions that support the artists, of course you have the patrons of the art, those who love paintings and buy and collect. So, and then a few private galleries, like of course in more recent times like Mutiara and all these are very active galleries. They really support the artists. They feel, and then they get a chance to showcase their work. So the small galleries everywhere. Yahong has been there for a long time. Of course, the whole ecosystem is required. Critiques in the newspapers, publicity, and so on. Nowadays it's very hard to get any publicity in the newspapers for even a good show. Priorities have changed.
Okay.
Professor Hasnul, is it true that at one time the purchasing funds for USM is actually much more than the whole budget for the PSAG?
Okay. So, I don't know if the public realize it or not. Beside the Penang State Art Gallery in Universiti Sains Malaysia in USM itself, there's a museum, or what is called Museum and Gallery Tuanku Fuzia. So we have here Professor who was once the director of the museum, MGTF, call it in short. So maybe to answer Mr. U's question, is there such big budget at MGTF? Okay, let's talk more about MGTF now.
No, there's no budget. Yeah. None whatsoever. Okay, how long do I have?
That's 3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes left.
3 minutes? 3 minutes, I better sing lah. I come here, I sing every weekend. Unbelievable, any points from 3 minutes? Why? You give lousy people more than 3 minutes to talk. And bullshit. You give important people like me only 3 minutes. Okay, I will try to summarize everything. I will have to rely on my note here so that I don't go off tangent. I think I can divide into three. One, I think we need to have a context before I speak about NGTF, and then the third one is probably a short summary. Sorry, I have to rely on this note, okay? Okay, first I go to the context first. I think we have to establish that when we talk about MGTF, when we want to talk about MGTF, we have to also, actually we have to talk about USM story in relation to the Penang Art Scene. And I think there are many different narratives within that story that can be interesting to be documented and acknowledged because there are a few important historical milestones that took place in USM. And it can also provide better historical narratives, better picture and better context, also to establish a deeper appreciation, especially towards the present generation of lecturers such as Dr. Sarena and her colleagues. Dr. Sarena now is my boss, so I cannot kurang ajar. If not, I punya markah akan kurang. Okay. USM story covers a period of 5 decades since 70s, 80s to 90s till now, 2020. I have to mention 4 other key departments within USM that share interconnected history. Okay, one, I have to mention about the presence or establishment of the Art Center, which then become the School of the Arts, and then of course the museum, and then there's a Dewan Budaya, and then there's one more which exists about few years called USM ABN AMRO Arts and Cultural Center. Okay, USM story can be crudely divided into 2 key periods. That's how I divide it. One is the first period from 70s to 90s. I look at the 70s as the period of envisioning, establishing, pioneering. 80s to 90s as developing and sustaining. And the second period, post 2000, from 2000 to 2010, basically re-establishing the Art Center, redeveloping, reinventing and rejuvenating. That is when I came in. From 2010 until today, perhaps I can call it sustaining, and that's the job of Dr. Sarena, Dr. Muntas, and all who are at the helm of the School of the Arts now. Okay, I go to the first period. First, the establishment of the Art Center, formerly known as Pusat Seni. I don't have the pictures here, I'm sorry. This will be later part. The establishment of the Art Center, Pusat Seni, in a university known as a science-oriented university. So that one we have to thank the first Vice Chancellor, Hamzah Sendut, for his vision, his pioneering spirit and his boldness in introducing an art center, a very small department, Pusat Seni, in a science university. And also we have to also take note and acknowledge the contribution of individuals, pioneers. I don't have their faces, unfortunately. I'm not a historian, but I think we have to take note of their contribution. Individuals in establishing the programs. If I'm not mistaken, there were only 2 programs, one in theatre, another one in fine art. Both of bachelors of fine art degree under the School of Humanities. In USM, the faculty is referred to as a school. Okay, people like Robert Crook. He's not a crook, his name is Robert Crook. I didn't know him, but he was a photographer. He was the teacher of Ismail Hashim. Chu Tembeng, of course, who established a printmaking studio. Lim Eng Hui, Zakaria Ali. I remember his dialogue Seni Tampak, his book. Ismail Hashim himself, Ismail Abdullah, one of the members of the Anak Alam also. Of course, we know Zabbas, and then Ray Langebeck from USA. He came to USM for a while, did few interesting projects. Najib Dawa, then the next generation of lecturers, Najib Dawa, Baharuddin Arus, student of Ray and few others, Rahman Muhammad and Mat Desa. So we have to acknowledge their contributions in terms of curriculum, course structure, teaching and learning, their exhibitions, productions, performances. Also some other part-time lecturers. I think Piadasa was there. TK Sababati was there. So these 2 really big names, icons in the Malaysian art history, they were there in USM. Latif Mohidin was there as a resident artist. He produced Langkawi series, and he produced his early public sculpture, which is still around in front of the School of the Arts. Okay. So, and then we have also lecturers from other departments, very transdisciplinary kind of approach. Gaus Nasaruddin, Gulam Sarwar, who helped to collect the performing arts collection, Tang Soibing, Janet Pillai, Samad Saleh, Latif Kamaluddin, our professor, I call it Ali Sufi. Have you seen Latif Kamaluddin? He's not around. He's not mixing around. You should see him. It's my favorite poet. And my favorite, Askandar Anglet. These two characters, very interesting characters. You should meet them. Askandar Anglet and Latif Kamaluddin. They were more hipsters than you, way before. Yeah. Jangan perasan awak hipster sekarang. They were very much trailblazing, and they did even more crazier works than the present generation of artists. In fact, I think I remember Ray Lagerbeck was in USM teaching sculpture, but he didn't really teach sculpture. He basically annoyed all the other lecturers and put himself into a lot of problems with the USM vice chancellors. He did some interesting projects with Latif Kamaluddin, interesting installation, intervention works, robotic works, electronic art works. So it was quite a pioneering effort happening in the School of the Arts then. Okay, another point. USM as the first public university in Malaysia to offer bachelor's degree in fine art. Also important milestone because that was the first public university to offer a degree in fine art. Okay, in fine art, right? And then establishment of museum and art gallery. Also thanks to Hamzah Sendut, the first vice chancellor. Also the contribution of the museum committee members, so many of them, one of whom is TK Sabapati. TK Sabapati was involved in developing one of the best collections of modern art in MGTF. Modern art in MGTF. And it is still being referred to until now. Many institutions, even the Singapore Art, what do you call it now? Singapore Art Museum, still borrowing from USM. There are many interesting works, even some rare works that is in the collection of USM. And then School of the Arts, from Pusat Seni to School of the Arts. That happened in 2000, in the year 2000. Before that, it was under the School of Humanities, but then in 2000, it became the school of its own. That is another milestone. That is another signal that USM has to embrace the arts, not putting it as a small department, as a school that offers 6 different degree programs. I moved in 2003. Was at that time the School of the Arts can be considered as new, 3 years old. Not so many lecturers. Sarena wasn't around. Many of the lecturers now were not really around. They were probably just the tutors. Together with other friends, we were tasked to, because the art center was already there, we were not actually establishing anything new like what happened in Unimas. The art center, the school, basically we were tasked to re-establish and redevelop, reposition the School of the Arts to become an important arts and cultural hub in Penang, in Malaysia, and also in the region. So we refer to, I still remember this because this one is from Dr. Najib. We refer to this guideline. One is local wisdom with global sharing. Number 2, transdisciplinarity. Number 3, humanizing technology by combining high-tech with high-touch. That was the mantra, transforming the School of the Arts. I was appointed not as the fine art head, but I was appointed as the head of the design department. It was called chairman. Blah, blah, blah. And then I was appointed as the Deans of Arts and Cultural Development based in the Dewan Budaya. I have to give context here, because the museum basically started from Dewan Budaya. It didn't start with the museum, and in Dewan Budaya I developed this brand or initiative called Demi Masa. The Demi Masa became the underlying driving initiative that were then sustained at MGTF. Okay?
Okay, Prof. Hasnul, 1 minute about MGTF. I know no money, but
Okay.
how do you sort of like, you know, acquire some collections at a
Make
time?
some friends lah. You don't be belagak, sombong. You talk like snobbish, snob intellectual, speak things that people don't understand. Go to the ground, you know, make friends and, you know, get to know people. Sometimes some people got a lot of money, they don't tell people. You know, so I became good friends of the tourism department. They got a lot of budget. So I told them, why don't we do Malaysian contemporary art together? You give me 200,000, or we cannot. We can give you 140,000. Okay, that's good. So we received 140,000 from the tourism department in Kuala Lumpur, and the other states were complaining why Penang got 140,000. They were during that time in opposition. Why you give opposition state a lot of money? They said because Hasnul came up with a very good plan. So that's how we get money. We get money by becoming friendly and humble, and you know, I don't know. That's how I did it.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Hasnul. So we got basically like 5 minutes to round up. Let's go to the last question. I think like Mr. Oi, you know, having these conversations today, what are your general thoughts on the Penang art scene in Penang and the changes over the years? Okay, maybe like, yeah. Fan Chon. Yeah, Fan Chon, maybe. What do you think? Oh, changes. The Penang art scene changes, you know. You want to say first? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So what was the question? The changes.
Yeah. Of the Penang art scene. Today, what do you think about the Penang art scene today?
Well, I haven't been here long enough to comment on that, but basically I would say that some more people self-organize events to happen. Let's say, for instance, Open Studio, which started last year. I think brainchild of Louis. Is Louis here? Someone who is it Esther? So it's totally self-funded. Oh, we never met. Nice to meet you. So Open Studio is self-initiated with zero funding from the States, and they managed to make this sort of massive collective Open Studio event that was open for 2 weekends, or was it one? It was only 1 weekend, but this year is going to be 2 weekends. So people are taking more ownership towards producing that sort of scale of large art events. I wouldn't call it a festival yet, but more events. And then I think in general, it's all kind of geared towards a more sort of heritage celebration or something to do with the UNESCO status. So sometimes visual art has to somewhat park alongside of the heritage celebration, because just to have a festival on visual art itself is unlikely to happen in Penang, I would think.
Can I add? That is very, very true, my friend. Nothing exists on its own. One of the problems with the previous approach towards organizational approach or strategy in relation to arts and cultural development was to see visual art in its cocoon. That is not going to work. You have to see it in relation to so many other things. Now art is a part of branding of a city, a part of hipster culture, if you want to say that, a part of gentrification, about a part of this whole process of rejuvenating a city. So art become a part of something, not standing on its own. I want to go back to MGTF. I am not finished with that yet. I think we have a period where something new, many new things taking place. And that was probably during 2000 to 2010. Because I was there. So many things, sporadic things happening, interesting potentials. But I think what's more important when we use the term art scene, because we use the term scene, I'm thinking like film director, in this particular scene, what will be the setting? Who will be the actors? What will transpire? What kind of actions will take place? Those are the tangible dimension of a scene. But more importantly, what's behind the scenes, So we don't want art just to be things happening, so many things happening. Of course, now there are many things happening. Art should not be just happenings, not just events, things that happen. So many things happening in Penang. But I'm interested, for me personally, I'm interested in what's going on behind the scenes. So what are the driving forces behind the scenes, the ideas, the concepts, the ideologies behind the scenes? What's the spirit behind the establishment of Hingbas, for example? What was the driving force? I like to know more of that when we call scene. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Hasnul. Maybe we should open it to the floor. Let's open the floor, maybe, and ask some hard questions like this, like what's behind the scene. Okay, any questions from the audience? Anybody wants to start off before I ask my? Yeah, basically like about 5 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, maybe 3 questions before I start asking my 10 questions. Or maybe I'll just ask one question to Datuk Tang. I was just wondering, when you were talking about Utara, were you saying that Khoo Sui Ho basically has a certain, the way that he selects the artists to join the groups based on the kind of works that they produce, because it seems to be more abstraction at the time. Do you think so? Selection based on the selection of the works that they produce?
I think that's the general conclusion formed by people like Chuen, because looking at the works of the artists, there seems to be a preference for works that are abstract or semi-abstract. Although, having said that, I always point out to the fact that Hip Sing is always painting figurative work, but probably in a very unusual and abstract manner, Yeah.
I mean, that and what Hasnul was. Oh, okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm not an art person. I'm not in the art circle, but I'm here because I'm interested in this topic, and I'm just wondering, was there no conversation between the State Art Gallery, PSAG and USM School of Arts? And then the second question is about the School of Arts. I was wondering, what was the major direction that the school was trying to bring, what was like heading to back then? And then another question is, what were the major themes or conversation happening within the school?
When? You referring to what
I mean,
period?
if you
In
have
the 70s, I didn't know.
A picture of periodization?
What?
A periodization of the conversation? I mean, or the themes happening within the school. Was there any significant period?
I can share with you the period where I was there, from 2003 until 2005, and then I was at the museum until 2012, and I came back to the school recently from 2012 until now. So what transpired from 1970s to 80s to 90s, I didn't know anything about. I just used some references from books, from chattings, from stories narrated by the lecturers who were there. Okay, so I don't want to explain much about the 70s, the first period, 70s, 80s, 90s. But I can share the second period, post-2000, because I was there. Post-2000, as I said before, three guidelines. I said before, three guidelines. One, local wisdom, but share it globally. Second, transdisciplinarity. Third, humanizing technology. Those three. So those three are the guidelines that we use to develop our curriculum then. I was tasked, my first task was to come up with a proposed document for two new programs. One is design department, product design. Another one, new media design. And we use these three sort of conceptual framework as our guide in the way we design the program. I don't know about the fine art department. I can't speak on behalf of the drama and theatre. I can't speak on behalf of the music department. Okay.
Also, back to the question: did PACG ever speak to MGTF?
I was okay. That's because she asked about the direction, one by one. Sabar-sabarlah. Saya tak boleh jawab dengan semua sekali serentak kan. Okay, your next question after the direction is the communication between PSAG and MGTF. I was one of the board members of the museum and committee members of the Penang State Art Gallery. So we have many conversations until I got so bored by so many conversations, meetings upon meetings upon meetings. Datuk Tan was my chairman and Li Kai, Haryani. So I was there in the committee for 6 years. So there was a good conversation. Haryani is like my sister. I'm her biggest critic. I will criticize the State Museum, the State Gallery, but I criticize right in front of her face. I will bash the museum. I said I'm not happy about this, blah blah blah, right to her face. And we try to find ways to overcome the problems. Uy mentioned that we got budget. We didn't get budget. This is how I buy artworks. I wrote for the artist, I got one work. I wrote for Hamidi, I got one work. I wrote for Rosli Sham, Ise, I got 2 drawings. I wrote for Nur Azizan Paiman, I got 1 painting. Most of the paintings came from my writings. I said, you don't have to pay, my writings cost a lot. You don't have the money to pay me. So you pay me with your works. That's one of the strategies that I use to buy artworks. Okay, thank you.
Can I just respond quickly? I would just like to respond quickly about change I observed so far. I think what I've seen so far in Penang, the experience of art is slowly migrating from indoor to outdoor. Because I've been here since 2012, since Ernest's famous mural. And also, first of all, is from indoor to outdoor to public space. Second of all, is also the scale of the work. Now we look at the Penang International Container Art Festival, which BB is also one of the participants. So the way we look at just ginormous scale of figurative mural painting on something that larger than life sort of scale, which is a different way of looking at art as well. I think comparing to in an intimate setting and a small painting that we almost our own size. We don't have the example here, but Yeah, so this work is at outside Penang Mall right now, which is a response to Chuen Tang with BB's own take. So.
Yeah. Thank you. It's a very nice picture and image.
Thank you, Fan Chon. Any last one? Oh yeah. Anybody else?
She can speak.
Interventionist.
Art as a form of intervention, political intervention, like what Ray has done.
Okay,
Was
anybody
it-
wants to respond to that?
Ray Langerback, you have to ask Ray Langerback. Don't ask me. I'm not going to speak on behalf of somebody.
Maybe Mr. Lika would like to
I don't know. Likani, you want to say?
speak about the roles of the PAD.
Well, no, yeah. Well, actually, we have the next session coming up, which might give everyone this chance to say their bit. I think that's a lovely note to end on. Joining two generations of artists, Bibi Chuen and Chua Tian Ting. So, would you like to round up, Sarena?
Okay. So, afraid of those glasses. Anyway, thank you so much to all of our panels. Right, don't go anywhere. We have a next session, which is Seni Sangat. It is so confusing.
Okay, so thank you very much to our panelists. Can we give them a big round of applause, please? Mr. Ui, Dr. Tang, Hasnul Saidon, and Fan Chon, and to Dr. Sarena for all the wisdom and enlightenment. The next session is called Karusi Hangat Seni Sangat, and that will be moderated and facilitated by Fan Chon and also Ruang Kongsi. And that will give everyone the chance to, give some more speakers the chance to talk about the contemporary situation now. There are some drinks and snacks, so let's make this discussion quite casual. There are also books for sale if you wish to buy copies of Narratives of Malaysian Art, both in Bahasa and in English. So I think perhaps would Okui, a 5 minute? Give a 5 minute change, so do help yourself to drinks and snacks and books. Thank you very much.